Up in the mountains, you can look down and see it all. The hustle and bustle down below, those coming up to escape the struggle down below, and those going back down to face their demons. The cold air stings your warm lungs as you inhale, but the air is so fresh, just like the Fjell. The word Fjell in Norwegian translates to mountain, and for many people, this keyboard can be considered a peak. Endgame, last keyboard, keyboard of the year. All names I've heard about this case, which is a testament to how highly many people revere this keyboard. Standing on top of this metaphorical mountain, you can see the Cooler Masters, Corsairs, and Keycols it took you to get here. You learned how to solder, you learned how to assemble a keyboard, you learned about keycaps, switches, stabilizers, and much more. Now you stand upon this Fjell and look at the keyboards of the past. Is there another mountain to climb, or do you take your rest here? If you take a rest here before climbing to the next mountain, here's what you find. The Fjell's iconic look was a breath of fresh air, and the aesthetic has spawned cases inspired by the thick bezels and sharp corners. Leandrin once said he didn't own bezels or chamfer, but when you look at this Fjell, you can't deny he is masterful at using them. There are boards that know how to use bezels and boards that don't. This mountain wasn't open for everyone all season. It was for the lucky few who were selected from a raffle. For this first round of Fjells, only 50 were minted from the cold lands of Norway, all with numbered weights. The steep, chamfered edges direct your focus upwards to the keycaps. The steep edges also hide the deceptively steep 8 degrees of angle that the keyboard has. It's not uncomfortable to type on by any stretch, but it's more than you might expect if you're unprepared. The anodized aluminum case with the brass weight clocks in at 2 kilograms or about 4.4 pounds unbuilt. Many say that the tray mount cases are too simple and even inferior to top mounted cases, but this is by far the most exquisite tray mounted case available. I want to talk about this inserted weight for a moment because it's simply breathtaking. When you see other normal weights, you look at it and think, oh, that's simple geometry. But when you look at the weight of the Fjell, it's more than just that. It fits nicely like a cat that's found the perfect box. Whether you love it or hate it, the text on the weight of the Fjell is on the inside, meaning you won't ever see it unless you open up your keyboard and take out your plate and PCB. I was lucky enough to receive number 42, but unfortunately, I think Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is overrated. Traversing the Norwegian mountains can be beautiful, like these Fjells, but both can be fraught with issues. My Fjell, for instance, has some marks on the front. A few other people had small scuffs and marks on the inside of their case, and at least one person received quite a scratched up and destroyed case. So how much did round 1 of the Fjell cost? It was $250 for the case, screws, rubber bump-ons, and weight. Adding the brass plate was an additional $38, and international shipping was $25. On top of everything, there was an additional 5% handling fee. Not too bad for a case of this beauty and heft. The case was heavy, but it moved fast. The group buy was shipped out approximately 10 weeks after the payment deadline and arrived in awesome protective boxes. So what do I think about this keyboard? It's badass. The purple is rich and royal. This brass plate has a beautifully reflective finish that will collect all of your fingerprints, and it's even switch top compatible. Inside, I have a Zeal PCB with all those groovy R's, G's, and B's. The PCB is programmed with a GMK, which I don't really know at all, so I'm stuck using a Zeal stock key map, which at least has HHKB arrow keys. The main issue I have with the PCB is I'm an idiot, but I do plan on eventually going through and programming this PCB to my standards. Now let's talk about the switches. The Hako True switch is quite the switch to talk about, and I can't talk about it without talking about the controversial Halo switch that came before. Hata, the designer of the Halo and Hako switches, has called the Halo switches a free round of R&D for the Hako switches. Why? There unfortunately was a falling out between Input Club and Massdrop, the ownership of the tooling versus the rights of the intellectual property. Without one, you can't really have the other, vice versa. Due to the failure to reach an agreed upon conclusion, their relationship is at a very cold period. I can touch on more about that in the future, but let's shift our focus back to the switches. Once Input Club couldn't release Halo switches anymore, they got to work on a new switch. And the Hako switches are the result, and goddamn they're beautiful. As someone who's tried both Halo and Hako switches, it's easy to understand that these switches were purposely created to match Hata's typing preference. What does that mean? On Input Club website, you can see the section they have dedicated to force curve graphs, more of which you can find on Hata's Plotly site. Hata has a force measurement machine to measure force curves of switches. After charting his favorite switches, he started to find out what they had in common with each other, and used that data to design a force curve he believed he would like to type on. Afterwards, he and Overkill at Input Club would work with Kale to design a slider that would best match that force curve. After some time, the first Hako switches were made. Of course, this is a very simplified tale of what happened, but it's the general picture. When I think of the innovation of the Hako switches and the Halo switches that came before, it makes you wonder what was the standard decided when creating switches? Pure mechanical durability, financial obligations, the feel and joy of typing. Input Club set out to create a switch with a method that was greater than simply telling engineers, I want a bigger bump, I want a smoother switch, I want a cheaper switch. There was a conscious process of transcribing a force curve into a physical slider and experimenting with springs to achieve a result that is now in mass production. Yes, spring things were quite important in the creation of the Halo and Hako switches. Both the Hako Clears and Hako Trues have the same stem, but feel incredibly different due to the springs inside. For the Hako True and its unique factors like the preload and bottom out force requires a unique short spring mathematically selected, as Input Club puts it. These Hako True switches are the true dom of typing. These switches will punish you like the naughty boy you are if you're constantly bottoming out. She'll make you sore but beg for more. These switches prefer those who are properly typing, meaning those who don't needlessly bottom out. A Hako True's spring is very unique with the light preload to the press, and like her Hako Clear sister, discourages bottoming out by rapidly increasing in force as you approach her bottom. Unlike the old Halo switches, you may have quickly noticed that these are in fact box switches, with all the wondrous advantage that box switches have. Hakos are rated for 80 million key presses, have angled drain vents to keep moisture and dust out, and don't wobble too much. While these switches feel really good, they don't feel perfect. Not everyone likes the tsundere trope in anime, and not everyone will like these switches. Not everyone will like the hard resistance against them as they bottom out, which will cause typing fatigue for some. It's the kind of love you might feel burdened by, the kind of love that makes you feel alive. So how does this keyboard feel? How does it feel when you're being tenderly caressed by a loved one? It's a feeling of warmth that runs through you. This keyboard forces me to type without bottoming out for the maximum amount of typing satisfaction. It's a heft that comforts you and cradles you with an almost motherly affection. The weight of this keyboard makes you feel secure in your typing, and the feedback of all these components together make for a typing experience that can't be matched by too many keyboards today. So, the case is beautiful, the plate is gorgeous, and these switches make me crawling back for more. This PCB is full of features and colors. What a time to be alive. What a mountain of wonderful potential and possibilities. Can you do anything but fall in love with this Fjell? What really sets the Fjell apart is the impact of its appearance. Bezels are so cool right now, chamfer is so cool right now, but how long will it stay cool? Ice cold. Is this a new look here to stay, from this day to our last day? Or is this a passing aesthetic to define a period in keyboard design history? No matter how you flip it, you can't deny the impact of this look and design. I don't know if this design will be timeless like the color black, or if it will be regarded as the 90s of keyboards. When we look back on the Fjell, will this be the frosted tips, popped collars, and neon windbreakers of keyboard history? This is one of my favorite cases and one of my favorite keyboards. While I wouldn't rank Hako Trues as high as my Holy Pandas, I would consider them pretty high up there, past Zelios or mod switches, easily. This makes me quite excited to try out the new Hako Clears, which I'll hopefully get a shot at trying soon enough. While my hike for different keyboards won't end here, I'm happy I stopped at this Fjell. I'm happy I got to admire and appreciate what it has to offer. In the future, when I regale youngsters with my talk of keyboards, I'll look fondly back on the Fjell. Thank you for watching.